All right, guys. So, yeah, like Coach Jackson said, I kind of thought I would do a Q&A format for you guys and answer the questions that you guys want answered. So they sent me a few ahead of time, put a couple clips together to kind of answer those questions. But if there's anything that you guys want to chat about more, anything that comes up as we're talking through it, just feel free to put in the chat or ask any questions that you guys have.
No, that's awesome, Coach. So first one that we had was maybe just giving us some insight into some of your pressure packages. How do you design that? What are you looking to attack, and kind of how do you deploy your weapons? So why don't you start with some pressure packages for us?
Okay, so let me just pull up our film here. All right, you guys got that on our film server there?
Yeah, we're good, Coach.
Okay, so for our pressure packages, we try to break it down conceptually when we're teaching the guys in a couple of different categories of pressure. So the big ones for us are fire zone pressures, our man or our +1 pressures, which there's some overlap there, our trap pressures, and then our simulated pressures. So I've got a few cut-ups of each of those, but the first thing we do when we're trying to install any of our pressures or teach them to the guys is try to teach them what we're trying to do in each of those, because there's a lot of carryover and it makes it a lot easier week to week. You know, if we're changing either the pattern of a blitz or tweaking the coverage with it, if they understand what we're trying to get done, how we're trying to attack an opponent, where the weaknesses are in it, it makes it a lot easier to teach it week to week and expand your package. So with our fire zones, the big things we talk to our guys about is we're trying to overload an area of the protection. And so a lot of that will come down to the game plan. And the big one for us is trying to figure out where the back's going to be in protection. A lot of the protection that we see is 6-man half slide protection. A couple times a year, we'll play teams that are primarily big on big or man protection. But the big one for us is we see a lot of 6-man half slide. So one of the big areas that we try to focus on is where's the back going to be? How can we overload this side of the protection that the back's going to be, or, you know, try to get a one-on-one with one of our best rushers against their worst protector. So the first one that I'll pull up here, this would be a middle overload pressure. So they're in a 2x3 set here. We're going to bring both of our inside backers here in the A-gap. So we'd like this one against either running backs who don't do a good job stepping up in protection and meeting blitzers at the line of scrimmage, or especially if our opponent has an immobile quarterback. If you can put direct pressure in his face right now, it's pretty difficult for him to hang in there, make an accurate throw with somebody right in his face and the running back having to step up and meet him. So this one would be a cross pattern for us. We could have both of our backers blitzing their A-gap, or we could call cross with and have them blitz the opposite A-gap. The other nice thing with this is if you know you're getting 6-man half slide, but you don't necessarily know which way the back is going to go, either way, you're going to get a one-on-one with one of your backers in the A-gap with the running back. The center is going to take one of them, and then whoever the second blitzer is left for the running back at that point. The big thing we talk to our guys about when they're blitzing here, the two inside backers have to want to use getting the running back, so you have to have a plan for that. The big thing we're trying to do in our scouting is, what does the back typically do in protection? Does he do a good job stepping up to the line of scrimmage, meeting that blitzer at the line? Does he stay really, really deep in the pocket? At that point, you know, you don't even necessarily need to work a move on him. You can bull him into the quarterback to try to affect the throw. But you're trying to get a good picture of what the running back's going to do in pro. And especially if they don't do a good job stepping up to the line of scrimmage, then this becomes a really good pressure because it's difficult for that quarterback to hang in here. So this one's a good example. Running back's really, really deep. You know, if he tries to work a move at this point, it's going to open up an escape lane for the quarterback. So when the running back set this deep, we would rather him just go real thick through him and try to bench him back into the quarterback. Thing you like about this is really the quarterback's only had time to check his initial read. If that's not there and you take away all the hot throws, it's pretty tough for him to hang in there, and he's already got to bail on the pocket. The other thing I didn't talk about earlier was kind of the coverage portion behind it. So with most of our fire zones, we're typically playing a 3 deep, 4 underneath coverage. There's a couple we'll do something a little different coverage wise with, but for the most part, we're playing 3 deep, 4 under. And so the thing I like about that, it's kind of like cautious aggression. So you're attacking the offense. You're trying to dictate a matchup. You're dictating how the game's going to be played. At the same time, if they do find a hole in the coverage, if they do pick up the protection, you're still playing a relatively safe coverage behind it. And so the worst that likely happens is you're looking at, a 10 to 12 yard gain as opposed to an explosive play over the top. So most of these coverage wise are going to be some kind of 3 deep, 4 under zone behind it. Sorry, I'm just looking at the questions here. So the first one here has to do with blitz timing. For the most part, we can get away with timing our pressures off the waggle of the receivers. There's been the rare instance where that's not the case, or you even see there was one team we played that didn't even necessarily use a waggle very much. And so that's obviously a lot tougher. So then the big thing that you can look at in your scouting is you're trying to find the cadence or the snap indicators from the quarterback. So, either the quarterback, guard standing beside the center, is there something that we can get or some kind of tell for when the ball is going to be snapped? But honestly, like 95% of the time, we're able to time our pressures off the waggle. And it's the same with the coverage behind it. Like we would like to show either a different shell of what we're doing. In this case, both halfbacks are low, but they're showing deeper than the corners. And so we're trying to show a different contour, and everybody's really taking their timing off the waggle of the receivers. For the blitz timing for the backers, whoever's going first, we want them at the line of scrimmage on the snap of the ball. Okay, so 56 here is doing a pretty good job, and he's right in the line of scrimmage as the ball's being snapped. We want our second blitzer about 1.5 yards behind him, and we really want him scraping the skin off his outside hip as he's wrapping tight opposite of him on his blitz path there. Sorry, so that was the first one. Let me just see what Scott asked here. Yeah, so if we had an idea of where the back is going to be in protection, we would rather have the second blitzer blitzing away from the set of the back because it's a more difficult pickup for the running back. You don't always have that, and so sometimes you're just trying to get a one-on-one. But like in this picture, if he's offset early, you would want him blitzing first and him blitzing second, because now he's got to come back to the opposite side of the protection to pick him up. And so that would typically be our preference. Same thing if we started in like a 50 front and just brought the inside guy behind it. But honestly, you don't always have that. So sometimes you're just good with the one-on-one. But if you do know where the back's going to be, then all the better. All right, we talked about that one. Okay, so the next couple here, we're overloading a side in protection here as opposed to the interior part of the protection. Sorry, let me just go back here. Okay, so this would be our salmon and mark. So the first thing here is this is a second and long situation. So one of the things that we like to do on second and long, we would call this like our kick front. So we want everybody in the front at least 5 yards off the line of scrimmage here. Typically, we're in like a 30 front personnel, so it is a little more difficult for the offensive line to identify who the potential pass rushers are here. But we're trying to create as much confusion as we can with the protection and sorting out who's coming and who's dropping out. Sometimes we'll bring everybody out of this. Sometimes we'll drop everybody out of this. In this instance, we're overloading the strong side of the protection. So this pressure, we're bringing our rush off the strong edge here. And then we're bringing our Mike and our Sam linebacker in behind. So we're overloading the strong side of the protection. Our free safety is rotating down to replace our Sam, and our weak half is rotating to the middle of the field to replace our free safety. So it still just becomes a 3 deep zone. We're just changing where everybody's dropping to in their coverage. So same thing Coach was asking about earlier. We're always trying to hold our disguise as long as we can. If this halfback is going to the post, we tell him to be 12 by 2 outside the hash marks here, hold his disguise as long as possible, and then he's pinning to the post on the snap of the ball so they don't necessarily know that they've got one-on-one with the weak corner on the backside. Okay, so for the front here, the thing I like about these overload pressures here is you can just have one word like slam for the Sam and the Mike rushing here. And then depending on what protection you're seeing, you can have all kind of different tags that change up the blitz path week to week. So this specific blitz path, we would be sending our end high and contain. Our nose is going to be showing in the strong side A gap here. And then he's got to cross the center space and he can continue working away from the pressure. Our Mike backer is going to threaten the outside shoulder of the offensive guard. He's going to give him a quick jab step on the snap of the ball, and then he's going to try to cross face into the A gap. And our Sam is showing off the edge early. He's going to sell up field for a step, and then he's wrapping tight inside off the hip of our end here. And so, good example here, we actually get this going to the slide side. It's difficult for this guard to leave the Mike backer going back behind him. And same with the center, like to pick this up, right? He's got to keep coming. He's got to keep coming. And the backside guard has to get all the way to the nose here. And he's got one of our backers mugged up right in his face. So it's a difficult pickup, even if they do happen to run to the slide side here. But that would be one example of an overload pressure. And then I think this is going to be the same thing to the opposite side. So again, similar look before the snap. This time we've got one defensive lineman down on the ball, everybody else walking around before the snap. This would be a weak side overload. So this is our Will and our X linebacker here. Again, playing 3 deep, 4 under behind it. So this would be our Sam in the strong hook, our Mike in the weak hook here, and then we're just playing double hold in behind. Okay, but same thing here. 55 is going to threaten the outside half of this guard. Cross face into the A gap. Our end's going to stay high. And then we're going to bring our Will linebacker off the Asst of 55 here as the second blitzer. Right. So the nice thing with these is really it's the same concept and you're just teaching them blitz pass. So you have one word to indicate who's in the rush and then you're tagging whatever blitz path you want week to week. So you may tag one blitz path if you're playing a half slide team. It may be something completely different if you're playing a big on big team, but you can change that up week to week. And it makes it a lot easier to be multiple and carry different blitzes week to week. This is one more look at the same thing. So this is our Sam and our Mike again against a 2-by-3 formation here. And this is the same blitz path, right? So our Will's dropping off 3 week. Our X backer is becoming the strong hook player here. And we're just playing double hold in behind. Okay, so same thing here. Our nose is going to threaten that strong A gap, and then he's going to work across the center space. Mike is threatening the outside half of the guard and then trying to win inside, end is high, and then we're bringing our Sam off his ass in behind. And our Sam doesn't do a great job here. We'd like him in the line of scrimmage, sell up field for a step, and then tight off the hip of number 18 there. This is kind of what you're looking to get out of it is now you've got one-on-one with your Sam linebacker with the running back. And so really with all the fire zones, you're not guaranteeing that you're going to win. At the end of the day, you're still only bringing 5 guys. And so they can pick it up. They've got enough guys in protection, but you're either trying to make it a really difficult pickup for them to sort out, or in the worst case, you're trying to create a really favorable one-on-one matchup. We're saying, okay, we're bringing one of our good rushers. He's going to have a one-on-one against your worst protector. And over the course of the game, we're going to have a chance to win enough of those. Sorry, I've got a question here in the chat, so let me just pull this up. Okay, so Scott was asking about our install for our look on second and long here, and if we're installing that right away in training camp. So we will do the first day that we're putting in second and long stuff, we'll do it out of our base front, and then really right from the second day of training camp, we'll install this look. And so if you're going to do it, you have to commit to it and spend time with it because it does take time, especially for defensive linemen who aren't used to rushing from off the ball, to get used to seeing the waggle of the receivers like we talked about earlier and timing up their blitzes. They're used to being right on the line of scrimmage. And so it's something that I think you need to practice. And if you're going to do it, and it's going to be a big part of what you do, they need as many reps doing it as they possibly can. The second question here I got from Coach Gray, how do you deal with running back cut block? Okay, so the first part of dealing with the running back cut block is the scouting portion of it. And so that's one of the things that we're going to look at is the running back a guy who's going to try to face you up in protection? Is he a willing protector? Is he going to try to cut you? Does he do a good job stepping up, meeting you at the line of scrimmage? Is he setting really deep? It's a bit of an aside, but especially like one of the things we see a lot of is teams will start their back in pistol. And you actually see that, I think, more at the youth sports level, even than you do in the CFL now, is the back starting in pistol and then moving to an offset position at the snap. And so that makes it a lot tougher to know where the back's going to be. But one of the things I think that hurts them doing is having that running back get up to the line of scrimmage and meet those blitzers as close to the line as they can. So that helps a little bit if they are starting the back in pistol, sending a guy to the back. There's a good chance he's going to be taking that blitzer on right in the quarterback's lap. But specific to the cut block, the first thing is scouting. Try to figure out if they're a guy who's going to do that a lot. The big thing we talk to our rushers about, and we'll work on it a lot in Indy that week if it's something that we're going to see, but you got to see the level of his helmet as you're rushing. And so as soon as that helmet drops, we talk about getting your feet back, almost playing it like you would teach avoiding a cut block in a run situation. So you want to get your knees back out of it, flip your hips, okay, and then you're clean to the quarterback from there. But I think it's really important to see the level of the helmet, and the worst thing they can do is try to run through it. If you try to run through the cut block, you're going to get cut and end up on the ground. So in that situation, we would give a little bit of ground to make sure that we stay on our feet. And now you're really free to the quarterback as long as you stayed on your feet, because they've lost the back in protection. So that would be the couple things that we talk to our guys about. I think, let me see, I'll pull up maybe one more here for the zone blitzes. Okay, so and this is one more look at the same one. So again, this is strong side overload out of a 30 front here. Right, so this one would just be out of our static base look here. So again, the nose is going to be slightly shaded on the center cross face, Mike threatening the outside half of the guard cross face, and then Sam upfield and then tight off the hip of that end. Right, so again, they should be good in protection here with how the slide's going, but it's a pretty difficult job for them to pass this off between those three. Right, and we've got a shot at we get a good hit on the quarterback with our Sam here. And then one's a little different with coverage. So this one would be a weak cut concept for us, right? So most of them so far have been double hold, but depending on where you're bringing guys from and who you have dropping, you know, if you like cut or strong cut, weak cut, depending on what the game plan is and where they like to throw the ball, there's really no reason you can't do any of your 3 deep zones and behind it. So it's pretty adaptable coverage-wise to whatever you need to do week to week. Sorry, Dave, did you have anything after that before I go on?
Not right now. I got a couple, but we'll wait till the end of the pressure section.
All right, so maybe I'll do our +1 stuff next here. All right, so the next category of pressures here would be our +1 pressures. So the big couple things we talk to our guys about is we're going to bring one more on our pass rush than they have in to protect. So we'll mostly only do this against 1 and 2 back teams. We'll do it against 7-man protection if they keep 8 or more and it doesn't become as good. And so we try to avoid those situations as much as we can. But if they're a 6 or 7-man protection team, or even better 5-man protection, then we feel pretty comfortable with it. When we're talking to the secondary here, the big thing we talk to them about is we're bringing one more than they have in to protect. So now we know we're going to win. So you're only really responsible for 2 categories of routes here. So you're playing quick game to fade. The defensive backs, it'll depend a little bit depending on the down and distance situation, but typically they're playing from about 7 to 8 yards, and they're a really, really hard inside shade. They have to protect the middle of the field since they have no help there. But in terms of the routes they have to defend, they're really only playing slant, hitch, speed out. And if it's not one of those 3 things, now I'm opening my hips and cutting off for the fade. You don't need to defend the intermediate digs, double moves downfield. The pass rush should win in that situation. And so we try to eliminate what routes they have to defend. Their technique, they would be buzzing their feet at 7 to 8 yards. So we talk about having hot feet. So you're not starting from a completely static position, but we don't want them giving ground. We want them bouncing in their cleats, and they're really dialed into the receiver's hip, that inside hip through the first 5 yards of the route. If they see any break in the first 5 yards, I'm driving with my eyes down on the hip until I can reach out and touch the receiver to play the ball. If they don't show any break in the first 5 yards, now I'm going to open my hips and sell out to cut off the fade. So that portion of the technique puts you in a really difficult position if you do get any kind of intermediate break. But the big thing is trying to eliminate what routes they have to defend. And so we just tell them it's quick game or it's fade. And those are the only things that really exist in your world in terms of what you're going to have to defend. For the front, the big thing we talk to them about is we're essentially exchanging one guy covering the running back man-to-man for a pass rusher. So now everybody in our front has to be responsible for the backing coverage. So if you get the back in protection, you have to stop your rush right now, and you've got to grab the back and you've got to hug him up and make sure he doesn't get out for the duration of the play. It's really important that the front understands the concept there, and if that back's anywhere near them in protection, that they're unselfish, they grab them, they come off their rush. The other couple things we talked to them about, if you're blocked, you got to stay blocked. So especially if a team sneaks in run against us, the worst thing you can do is keep rushing upfield, because you're going to create really big seams if they do sneak in run against you. So if you get blocked, you want to stay blocked. Your vision now goes to the quarterback, and now you're trying to get your hands up to affect the ball on quick game. So the big thing that you see in terms of hot throws is going to be quicks, drags, but stuff happening over the middle of the field. And so those defensive linemen still have a really good opportunity to affect the play, even if they're blocked, by pushing the guy blocking them back into the quarterback's lap and getting their hand up to knock down quick game. The edge guys, whoever the contain rushers are to either side, if that running back crosses their face at any point during the play, they got to peel them and cover them man-to-man. And whoever's inside of the contain guy has to be ready to replace contain if that back does leave out. So the big thing we talk to our guys about here in the front, everybody's got to see where the back is right now. Right? If he steps to your side at any point in protection, you got to be really, really conscious that I could get the back and I got to hug him up. For our secondary, we're pretty much never going to show +1 and actually bring. We want to show some kind of contour that doesn't look like everybody on the same level. But then at the snap of the ball, you should see the entire secondary at about 7 to 8 yards in man. So I like our field corner here. He's doing a good job bouncing in his cleats here. So you can see him kind of hopping through the quick game area here. As soon as it's not quick game, now he's going to open his hips and cut off the fade. I don't like our field half here, right? So he's giving way too much ground here. If they do throw anything quick, he's not going to be in good position to play it here. It's probably a little different because it's end of the game here, but in terms of technique, that wouldn't be a great job by our field half. For the front here, okay, so with our +1, we would, same thing, just have different paths that we're going to change up week to week, or maybe even a couple going into a game. This path is our Sam in the strong B gap, our Mike in the weak B, and then our Will off the edge here. Okay, running back step strong. So this is a good look at our Sam grabbing the running back in protection. And now he's got to stay with him for the duration of the play and make sure he doesn't slip out on any kind of screen or check down. The other big one here that I didn't touch on earlier, whichever side we're bringing the overload from, that end, he has a bull technique. We call it bull follow. And so he's doing everything he can to shorten the edge for our +1 guy. If the offense does what they're supposed to do, they're going to try to leave the widest rusher for the quarterback. And so you got to talk to all your guys about shortening the corner as much as they can. So this end, he should be attacking the midline of 66 here. We want him as tight to 66 as we can so we can shorten that edge for our Will off the edge here to the quarterback and help him get there as quickly as he possibly can. Right? And so the thing I like about this, if you look at the timing for the quarterback, as soon as his back foot hits, that ball's either got to be coming out right now, or if he doesn't pull the trigger right away, you've got a good chance to get pressure and potentially a sack on the quarterback. Okay, and then this is a look at the same pressure versus the same play a couple plays later. So pretty much the same situation here. Our free safety is playing a little bit deeper here, but this is a third and extra long situation here. I like the fact that he's not losing ground. He's just shuffling to maintain that inside alignment on his receiver. And now because we know the ball's going to come out, we're playing quick to fade. We free them up with their eyes a little bit more to actually have vision inside and see the quarterback in case the ball is coming out quick. This is a good example again. So they do a good job turning loose the widest guy. Sam's in the B gap. He gets the back again in protection. So he does a good job engaging him, hugging him up. And then this is a great job by our end here, shortening the corner for our Will. So I like the fact that he's attacking the midline of the tackle. So that keeps that corner as short as he possibly can for a Will and shortens up his path to the QB. Okay, and then this would be a look at a different blitz path here. So same thing, this time they get the back out late. This Sam was going to be blitzing off the edge, but because the back steps up to the edge in protection, he's got to come off and take him man to man. In terms of the technique here, I think our boundary side is pretty good. So again, I like that neither guy is losing ground initially and they're hanging in there for quick game. And now if the ball doesn't come out, we got to be in a posture where our hips are open on top of the receiver and we're cutting off that go route. So technique-wise, everybody except for our field half here would be pretty good in terms of bouncing in their cleats and hanging in there for quicks. Okay, and then this path, now we would be bringing our Will and our Mike both in the A gap here. So it gets a little easier once the back leaks out in protection here. It's the same kind of thing we talked about earlier, is you know you're going to win somewhere one-on-one. All these guys inside, once they're blocked, they should stop rushing in their gap right now, and they should be squeezing the pocket inside and looking to get their hands up for quick game. Okay, and I'll show one more +1 here and then move on to the next thing. Okay, and so this is a good example where we don't get the sack on the quarterback, but this is one of the reasons we like it on 2nd and long. Okay, and this is a great job by our free safety playing the technique here. So the quarterback does a good job getting rid of the ball here. It's a 2nd and 10 situation. This is a great job by our field half and our free safety bouncing in their shoes here, looking for quick and being in position to drive down on it. But essentially for them to beat this, you've now forced them to get rid of the ball and throw to a receiver who's still 4 or 5 yards short of the sticks here. As long as our defensive backs are doing a good job not losing ground, they're sitting 7 to 8 yards deep, bouncing their cleats, and they're ready to drive downhill on any short throw. You're forcing them to throw the ball short of the sticks on 2nd and long. And as long as you can do a good job securing the tackle on that receiver, it's a difficult pickup for them on 2nd and long to convert. Same thing here. This is a different blitz path again. Again, this is our short in the corner end here, 55. And then this is our Will as the edge rusher here. You can kind of see the timing they have to have in order to beat this here. But I think that's a really good example, not necessarily of getting the sack, but of what the pressure is supposed to do on 2nd and long, force a quick throw, defensive backs in position to drive downhill on a short throw and make the tackle short of the sticks for a first down. Okay, so next set of pressures here I'm going to talk about. These are our trap pressures. Okay, so for most of our trap pressures here, they're similar to our fire zones, but it's a bit different technique for our corner. We're going to have either one or both of our corners responsible for the flat. The reason we like doing this, we'll like this against teams that like to throw hot, replacing the blitz. And so that's one of the big things that you're kind of looking at in your prep is what do they do? What are their answers for blitz? Are they a team that's going to bomber guys in and protect with more guys? Are they going to try to throw hot to wherever the blitz is coming from? So if we see that, we'll overload a side and then roll the corner down into the flat behind it. And that technique is very difficult for the quarterback to see. And the corner is in a good position to have vision inside on the quarterback the whole way here. It's similar to a cut technique, but he's not going to be getting a reroute on number one. So we'll talk to you about whoever over the top player is. He's got to play a little bit wider. And obviously it hurts you on verticals in that situation because you're not getting a good reroute. But if you're bringing pressure and you know they're going to try to replace the pressure hot right now, you've got a good chance to break up on a quick throw here. So this pressure, again, is out of that 30 look on second and long. This one, we're going to be bringing our Sam and our strong halfback off the strong edge here. That end, again, has a long stick technique with our nose crossing the center space and our opposite ending contained. Our corner is going to be the trap player here. And then we're spinning our free safety over the top and our weak half to the post here. Our Mike and our X backers would be the hook droppers here. So he's a 3-2 dropper. And then he's got a drop off number 4 strong here versus quads. So I like this posture from our corner here. You know, he's got vision inside on the quarterback the whole way here in case they do try to throw hot. And you can kind of see him getting ready at the end here to potentially break up on this bang route here if that was where the quarterback decided to go. And then this is a good look again at what we were talking about with the pressure and trying to get, you know, favorable matchups in this situation because they're sliding the protection to the boundary here. We've now got our Sam and our strong half off the edge behind the slide, 2 for 1 on the running back. Running back does a good job taking the inside rusher like he should, but now they really don't have an answer for that second rusher off the field edge there. Okay, and then this would be the same, this is the same pressure again later in the game. Okay, so now because we got 2 receivers to the boundary, our will or a dime's got to come out and cover down number 2 weak here to replace our halfback. So he's the crow flat dropper to the boundary. The one thing our corner could do a better job of, we'd like him to show in an off position here and try to make it like he's playing some kind of hold or quarters contour and then spin down into that trap position. But again, I like the fact that he's got eyes inside on the quarterback here and he's got good vision inside in case they do try to throw anything hot to the flat behind the blitz. Okay, and in terms of the pressure here, this isn't the best example of it here, but for our long stick defensive end, so when I say long stick, that means he's got to go over 2 gaps now. The big things we talk about technique-wise, he can tighten his alignment to the outside armpit of this tackle. This is an example where he gets too tight, right? And so if you look at him at the snap here, he's so tight, it kind of clues the offense in that, okay, he's going inside. This tackle's just going to let him go to the guard now, and now we're not going to get our 2 for 1. So he's got to stay at the tightest on the outside armpit of that tackle at the snap of the ball, and then he can work inside to that A gap. Anytime you're long sticking, we'll tell this end, I'm keying the guard. And so if that guard comes to me, I got to cross his face to the A gap. If that guard goes away from me, I'm not going to get to the A gap anyway. So now I can chase tight through his outside hip and play the ball flat down the line of scrimmage here. For our edge blitzers, so this would be a slice technique by our inside blitzer. So he's keying the end man. He's not in contain here. And so if that end man steps down, he can chase flat down the heels of the offensive line. If he steps to him, same as our end, now he's going to cross face to get inside into that B gap, and that's going to leave our halfback off the edge for the QB. So this isn't a great job by our Sam here. We'd like to see him cross face and then leave our halfback off the edge. He does a good job with his chop rip here, but in terms of running the blitz properly, it's not a great job by him. Okay, and then these are 2 examples where we're playing a trap technique to both sides. So we're not doing a very good job disguising this before the snap. Like we're pretty much giving away that the corners are responsible for the flat here. So I don't love that. This is against Ottawa, who's a lot more big on big or man protection here. And so now we're going to try to cover, let me go to the tight here. We're going to try to cover both of these guards with our inside linebackers here. This guy's doing a great job. This is a really bad job by our field backer here. But as soon as you get into like any kind of 30 front here against a big on big team, most teams are going to try to give this guy the inside backer to the outside backer off the edge. So we'll try to mug these guys up, cover them up, make sure there's somebody directly in front of them. And then we're bringing a defensive back off either edge to the quarterback here. Our ends are going to take 1 step up field and then work an inside rush. And now our nose is bullying on the center here. So the couple things I like about this is a tough pickup for 53, right? So he's got somebody directly in his face, and now he's got to set out to the edge to get to our dime. And worst case here, you're giving yourself, if you've got a good interior rusher, you're creating a one-on-one on the center here. And so if you do have a good defensive tackle, somebody can play in a zero, you're creating a pretty favorable matchup in there. Okay, and then this is probably the best example of that trap technique against them throwing hot behind the blitz. So this is the same pressure again with the trap corner to both sides. They're trying to throw hot to the back to replace him behind. And I like the fact that our corner's got vision inside the whole way here. So as soon as that quarterback's shoulders go to the running back in the flat, he's into position to break downhill on the throw. And so even if this is a good throw and it's complete here, that corner is going to be in pretty good position to make the tackle short of the sticks. Okay, and then here's another look. So again, 41's not doing a great job. It's a much better show by 55 here. Okay, and same blitz again. They get confused and then protection off the boundary side here. But that trap technique, I think, is really good because it's difficult for the quarterback to see all the way out to the corner. You're spinning somebody down in behind the pressure to where they're likely to throw hot. And so the big things we would see on film that would make us like that, you know, if a team likes to replace the blitz and throw the ball right now, then that puts you in a pretty good position to break downhill and make a tackle short of the sticks on 2nd and long. Okay, and then the last kind of category of pressures here, these would just be our simulated pressures. So the big thing here is we're only rushing 4 guys. We'll change up how we do it and the look that we're presenting to the offense. But at the end of the day, we're trying to show a pressure look, only rush 4 guys and hopefully create a favorable matchup and then play a base coverage in behind it. And so this one is out of a unique look on 2nd and long here. This is our end lined up as the zero here. He's actually going to work all the way to contain to the boundary. Our end to the field has a long stick again. And then we're running that overload pattern to the field. But we're only rushing 4 guys and still overloading a side of the protection. And then this would again just be a 3 deep look where we're spinning our free safety down behind the pressure and our weak half to the post. Okay, and so this one, they're trying to sprint to, and we've got the corner and the free safety low to where they're likely throwing here. If you look at the front, right, this is still our long stick technique. And so we'll teach all these techniques when we're installing our zone pressures in camp. And so, you know, the nice thing is if you say, here's what a long stick is, here's your reads. Now, when you install any pressure or change the blitz path, you can just say on this, you're going to have a long stick, and they already know what the rules are. So if that guard comes to me, okay, I'm going to cross face. If he steps away, I'm chasing tight off his hip. I've got tightened to the outside shoulder of the tackle at the snap of the ball. And so this is actually a defensive tackle running that technique for us, but it doesn't change his rules any from what it would be for our end. Okay, and then this is one more look at a simulated pressure. So this time we're trying to show a +1 look here. So that flat top look we would get into with our +1 pressures. We've got everybody in the front at the line of scrimmage. And we're really just going to rush 4 guys here. So it'll be our 3 down linemen and our dime off the weak edge here. And then we're really just playing a double cut coverage in behind it, right? And so the nice thing with this is you can create pretty good matchups. Like in this case, we're able to get our dime, who's a pretty good blitzer, one-on-one with the running back. And so you've got their running back one-on-one. You're wasting 5 of their guys for 3 of yours. And you're playing a day 1 install coverage in behind it while creating an opportunity to win in pressure situation there. Okay, and then this is another one. So this would be a double A gap blitz with our inside backers here, sorry. All right. I'll go to the tight, the wide comes in a little late. So this is similar to the first one I showed. We're bringing both inside backers on a cross pattern here, and then we're dropping both ends out, and we're really just playing, I think it's either double cut in behind it. So our rush in this case would be replacing our Mike's drop. Our end would be replacing our Will's drop. And again, now with a 4-man rush, we've got one of our linebackers one-on-one with the running back right in the quarterback's face. And so Coach Gray asked earlier about running backs cutting. Here's a great example where we don't do a good job of it, right? He thinks he's got a free run to the quarterback, and you can see his vision is looking over top of the back to the quarterback here. He's got to see the level of that back's helmet drop. He tries to flip his hips to avoid it, but the big thing is he didn't stop his momentum here. He's still continuing upfield, so now he's likely to get cut. You'd like to see him jump his legs back here as he's flipping his hip and give a little ground to stay on his feet, and then he can potentially continue to the QB. Okay, but again, you're getting immediate pressure in the quarterback's face. You're getting a good one-on-one matchup against their worst protector, and you're really just playing a day one coverage that you would install the first day of camp. And so that makes it pretty easy to be multiple with it and pick a coverage that you like on second down, but not just rush 4 guys, especially if you don't necessarily have, elite pass rushers in your front who are going to win consistently. Why not try to create a favorable matchup on their worst protector and still play a pretty safe coverage in behind it? Okay, so that's kind of what I had for the pressure portion of it. Was there anything you wanted to talk about there, Dave? Or anybody else have questions about any of that?
Yeah, coaches, if you have any questions about what Coach Brady just went through, go ahead and put them in the chat or unmute yourself. But I've got a couple here for you, Coach. Because you gave us a whole bunch of different looks of different types of blitzes or blitz packages, right? What do you look for, and what's your thought process in determining which ones you're going to use and when you're going to use them? Is it kind of everything's in there and it's based on down and distance, or are you looking at specific opponents? I want to attack them with this. Are you looking at blocking schemes and this type of package will be better and we'll save that one for next week? What's your thought process in that?
Okay, so the starting point in terms of figuring out what we're going to do pressure-wise week to week, if it's a base down and distance situation, especially against like a good running team, you're trying to figure out what the likely point of attack is going to be. And so are they, a downhill inside zone team that's going to hit the ball between the B gaps? Are they a gap scheme run team that's going to hit the ball off tackle, try to kick out the end man and hit the ball off tackle? So, in the first instance, if we're playing a team that's really attacking between the B gaps, that would probably dictate more inside pressure. If you're playing a team that's going to hit the ball off tackle, you're looking to bring pressure to wherever they're going to be kicking out, and you're likely bringing guys, 1 or 2 guys off the edge to the likely point of attack. So that's how we would look at it in a run situation. The other thing that ties into that, because it's likely somewhere in the neighborhood of like 60-40 run passes, you still want to be good if you do get drop back pass there. So what are their likely protections in that situation? And is there something that gives us a good balance of attacking the point of attack, but is also good against whatever their top protections are going to be there? Second and long, it all becomes about protection. And so the starting point is what is their base protection scheme? Are they going to change it up a bunch? Typically, personnel is a really good indicator of that. Do they have a guy on the field who's able to bomber in and now go from a 1-back look but make it a 7-man protection at the snap of the ball? A lot of teams, if they want to get into 7-man protection, that's going to dictate they sub somebody. And then, with their protection, are they a half slide team, which is a lot of what we see? Are they a big on big man protection team? Are they a team that's going to keep 7 guys in and full slide the protection and just a straight gap protection and leave both backs off of an edge? And so you're trying to figure out how much they do each of those things. Typically, each team is going to have their preference. And so, certain blitzes or blitz pass are going to be really good against half slide. Some are going to be a lot better against big on big protection, like the Ottawa ones that we talked about. So starting point is protection. What's their base protection rules? How can we attack it? The second thing we're going to look at is the quarterback. And so what's his response to pressure? We'll have a cut up every single week of all their snaps from however many games we're breaking down, where the opponent brings 5, 6, 7, and you're trying to get a feel for how do they respond to each type of pressure. So are they good against +1? What's their answer to it? Are they going to try to bomb her in and get an extra guy in protection? Does the quarterback do a good job throwing the ball hot? Will he hold the ball? Does he identify it really well? Mobility is a big issue. So like those double A gap blitzes where our tackles are now responsible for contain, those become a lot worse if that quarterback is going to be able to move around and now your contain's not as good. If it's an immobile guy, those are great because it's going to be hard for him to escape in that situation. So quarterback mobility is a huge piece of it. Do we want him escaping is sometimes even a discussion. You know, some quarterbacks, especially the really good running ones, the worst thing you can do is put direct pressure in his face and influence him out of the pocket. You'd much rather have him standing comfortable in the pocket and throwing the ball. So those things all play into it. And then kind of after that, you'd be looking at, you know, personnel. Who are their worst protectors? The running back is pretty much always a big piece of that. It would be rare to say you're not trying to attack that guy. And so how can we get our best guys on their running back and make him have to stay in and protect? And especially teams that you don't see it as much. You see it a little bit, like we'll see it maybe once a year, but once in a while you'll play a running back who's really, really good catching the ball, and teams do a good job getting him out into the route. And so, you know, if he's got a check release in those situations, if you can bring a guy to wherever he's going to be, now you've eliminated the threat of having to cover him by making him stay in protection. And so, you know, sometimes you stress so much about how are we going to cover this running back one-on-one, our backers can't cover him. But if you can blitz him and make him have to stay in and protect, it's a good way to even eliminate that threat. And then, you know, the offensive line specifically, is there a guy we want to attack? Like, who's their worst guy? All things being equal, how can we give him a difficult pickup? Either a guy, you know, working two gaps over, or again, getting our best rusher, whether it's a D lineman or backer on him. So look at all of those things, and then you try to kind of formulate whatever the best plan is from there. I'm just seeing Coach McCauley asked a question here about +1. So he asked how much we're on the line versus how much we're moving around. We're the first thing is we're pretty much never going to show +1 and actually run it. We want to make them identify +1 right at the snap. And so the thing I can't stand is lining up with everybody flat at the line of scrimmage and then bring +1, because you've already you've alerted the quarterback that it may be coming. And so if they've been coached up at all, they're already thinking about what are they going to do against +1 here? Where's my hots? And they've already got that mindset in their head, especially in Canadian football where you can use the waggle to time up the pressure. I think it's pretty easy to come from depth. So our +1 is almost always going to be from depth, and our front is going to be walking down into it. In terms of coming from 5 yards to off the line, that could vary, but our second level guys are pretty much never going to be lined up on the line of scrimmage showing a +1 look and then actually bringing it, because I just think it's too easy for the quarterback to identify what's going on and start thinking about what his answers are going to be before the snap. And in general, you know, this kind of probably ties into the coverage disguise portion, but one of the big things we talk to our guys about is we want quarterbacks having to make all of their decisions post-snap as much as possible. We want them making as few decisions pre-snap as you can. So even the worst quarterbacks, if you let them know what the coverage or the pressure is going to be before the snap, they have time to think it through, and they can typically come up with what the right answer is supposed to be. If you can disguise or make everything look the same or make something look different than it is before the snap, and that quarterback has to wait until the exact second that the ball's actually being snapped to start his decision-making process, that makes it a lot more difficult on those guys. And we want quarterbacks making as many of their decisions as possible post-snap with, you know, the threat of 7 or 8 guys directly rushing him, and not being able to think it through when he's poised and nobody's trying to take his head off before the snap.
That's fantastic, Coach. Another one I've got for you is you showed a clip earlier, and I think it was, you know, kind of maybe even by mistake. You're bringing the pressure off the edge, and it actually went into this half slot.
Yeah.
So when you're teaching concepts like that, are you teaching it that every player going is expecting to be a free guy, or how much do you expect one guy to kind of make the play so the other guy can get home, and they're playing off each other? What's your thought process in that?
Are you talking +1 specifically, or any of our pressures?
To be honest, I'm talking more anything else but +1.
Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of the same thought process as when we talk to our guys about like our pass rush games. And so one of the kind of things we talk to our guys about when we're talking about our games, a lot of guys will think like a TE, okay, that's designed for this guy to win. It's never that. We're giving you a specific place to rush. The protection is kind of determining who actually wins on the pass rush. And so, and it's not a blitz, but if you're talking about a TE games where a tackle's the penetrator, well, he's trying to get to that inside hip of the offensive tackle. And if he can get there and then our end loops inside, we're going to win at that point. And it's really on what that offensive guard does now, whether it's the tackle or our end who wins, right? If the guard comes off to pick up our end inside, well, our tackle's got great position on that offensive tackle, and he should win when he ricochets off of him. If the guard stays in protection to help his buddy out, well, now our end's going to win looping inside. It's the same kind of thought process with our pressures. And so we're not drawing something up for somebody to come free necessarily. You've got a pretty good idea of who it's likely to be. If you get it the way that you want it to the side you want to, and they protect it the way that they should. But especially on the O-line, guys are going to make mistakes all the time. You don't necessarily know who's going to come free. And so the big thing you teach the guys is what's my key here? What are my rules based on what he does? And as long as they follow that, we're going to end up with all the gaps accounted for in pass rushers where they should be. So, things like with the long stick, is the guard 2 me or away from me? And that's going to dictate what I do. For the pass rushers, let's say we get to the back. If I'm a contain rusher, well, I've got to attack the outside half of the back. If I'm not in contain, I'm attacking the inside half of the back. And that way, if we do end up in a situation where we've got 2 guys on the back, they know exactly where they should fit on him. And so I think you try to create as many of those rules as you possibly can. It's not so much about who's going to win as here's what your key is, everybody follow your rules, and that protection and how they sort it out is going to dictate who actually wins on the pressure.
That's fantastic, Coach. Appreciate it. I'm just taking a quick look. I don't see any questions for the pressure section. You want to move on to the next spot here?
Yeah, what do you want to go through next here?
Well, why don't you take us quickly through some of your 3-man pass rush?
Okay, so
stuff you've done there.
Yeah, the 3-man rush, we frankly don't have a ton of. We really do one of 2 things if we're rushing 3 guys for the most part. We're either going to play like a drop 9 double cut concept and cover all the underneath zones, or more so what we do is we're going to rush 3 with a spy on the quarterback and play 2-man in behind it. And so we won't do that against the absolute best running quarterbacks that we see, but if the quarterback's a run threat at all and we're nervous about it, we'll typically rush 3, play 2-man in behind, and then assign a spy to them. So those would be our top kind of 3-man rush concepts. Let me just pull that up here. All right, that should be up there. So the first one here will be our drop 9, and most of the rest of it is 2-man. Like 95% of the time plus on passing situations, we're going to be rushing at least 4. But if we're playing a really good quarterback, or we've got a good feel that they are going to be throwing the ball quick at the sticks, dropping 9 and playing double cut in behind it isn't bad, because you're taking away all the underneath pass zones. There's also some relevance to it against teams that are going to bomb her quite a bit. So this one would really just be double cut. The big difference here we talk about is typically these guys would be like 3-2 droppers. They can push to the hip of number 2 right now because they know they've got somebody coming in behind it. Our 2 inside guys, one of them is going to be dropping to the 3, and whoever doesn't have the 3, he would be the over the ball dropper. So he's dropping right down the hash marks at 10 to 12 yards there. right? And so they've actually got a decent window here. We would like to get a better reroute on number 2 here. He's dropping to a good position, so we want him relating to the inside hip of the receiver at 10 to 12 yards, and we'd like to see him widen him a little better with his punch here. But that would be kind of, I think there's that and maybe one other example where we drop 9 and play zone him behind it. This is more so what we do if we're rushing 3. So this would be 3-man rush with 2 man in behind it. For our 2-man coverage, we tell all of our defensive backs except for our field corner, and he would join if he gets a really tight split from number 1, but for the most time he's playing his normal man-to-man technique. So he's going to be like 7 yards off, inside leverage a number 1, playing off man. Everybody else is playing a trail technique. And so for all of these guys, we want them up inside of 5 yards, and they have to get hands on the receiver in the first 5 yards of the route. This would be the one situation where we tell them they can be a little bit more aggressive with their jam. Normally, we want them one-hand jamming so they don't get their hips locked. But if we're playing 2-man, they've got direct help over the top from a safety to either side. So now they can be a little bit more aggressive with their jam. And so the big couple things we talk to them about is they're going to be on the inside hip of the receiver. They should have square pads. And it's just like taking a charge in basketball. You're trying to make them run right through your chest. And so his eyes are down on the hip. The hands are the least important part of the jam. We're trying to move our feet, cut off his release with our body. And we either want to stop his feet on the release, or we want to force him at least 2.5 yards off of his stem here on the release. And we think that has affected him enough that he's not going to be in the spot the quarterback expects him to be at the top of his route. So our half here does a really good job staying square, staying physical with that number 2. And sitting on his route. This is a good job by our dime as well. So I like the fact that he's down inside of 5 yards. He does a real good job staying square there and putting hands on the receiver inside of 5. And because all of our defensive backs are protected over the top, this is a good look at it here by our Sam. So I don't like the jam. We shouldn't just let him run like that. We want to put hands on him first. But once he is off the jam, this is the relationship that we want to be in. So we want to be 1 by 1 off the inside hip of the receiver, and he's actually playing the low inside hip of the receiver. So he can undercut any digs or outbreaking routes because he's got direct help over the top. But especially like in this situation, if teams like to throw the ball to the sticks on 2nd and long, I like this coverage because it puts the defender right underneath the receiver. If you got a good feel that they're going to be trying to break right at the sticks with their route. And then this would be kind of a change up. So this is 2-man again, but now we're actually spinning the corners to the deep halves here. Okay, and so this is a good look at the dig. This is our Sam covering the number 2. So again, he should be 1 by 1. He wants to be a little further inside of that number 2, but he gets a little stacked on him here. So he actually gets beat on the dig. This is a route that should be dead. But this is a great job by our corner. He's splitting the 3 and 2 here on the snap, and he does a good job playing over the top of everything and breaking on the throw here. This is a pretty good job by our corner here in 2-man. So good job staying square. Right, and now he can put himself right on that low hip of the receiver. Okay, and sorry, I didn't talk about the front earlier, but essentially we're rushing 3 here. One of our inside backers is going to have the running back, and then our other inside guy is going to have the quarterback on a spy technique here. So the nice thing with this is, again, a lot of teams, when you cover all 5 offensive linemen, they're going to check to some kind of big on big. So he's blocking him. Because these 2 have a really easy coverage responsibility, they can do a good job threatening the guard. And so even though you're rushing 3, you've actually created 3 one-on-ones at the snap here. So I don't mind that for a 3-man rush because it's a lot more difficult for them to help their buddy out here. And then this is a good job by our spy on his delayed rush. So we'll tell him, hold the guard. He does a good job threatening the guard. Now he's working to get directly over top of the quarterback inside of 3 yards. If the quarterback does escape, then you're going to pull him up. Or if you get in this situation where you see the protection open up and you think you can win, then you're free to go and pull the trigger on the quarterback right now. Okay, and then this would be a 2-man concept again. This one's with a 4-man rush, but this one's a good look at the coverage here, right? And so our Sam, again, doesn't do a great job with his reroute here. Now when he's in this trail position, if he gets anything breaking to the corner, we'll tell him he can play a low shoulder technique. Okay, so he's basically undercutting the route at this point because he's got the safety over the top for the deep throw. The other thing was we'll typically let our field corner play like a 70-30 technique anytime he's manned up to the field. And so our field corner does a great job here. He gets a low route from number 1. Even though he's manned up here, we'll let him open up and play off the QB in that situation. And so that's not something you necessarily have to do, but it's something that you can do to help the coverage out. This is a good look at our boundary corner, getting into that 1-by-1 relationship with number 1 with help over the top. And then this is kind of the same thing here. Right, so this is a good job by our half. He needs to stay a little bit more square. See how he's reaching here with his hand. You'd like to see him stay square, move his feet, put his body in front and cut off the route, as opposed to reaching and trying to run with them. Again, in this situation, he can undercut this route because he knows he's got safety help over the top. Okay, so even in the last couple of plays, we've had guys beat off the line of scrimmage. They're protected over the top, and so they can be a lot more physical, more aggressive with their jam, and it's still a pretty safe coverage in behind it. This is a really good job to the boundary here, putting himself in that trail position. And so this is a good look at how it should play out with any kind of dig, right? He's 1-by-1 off that low inside hip, and so now he can undercut anything breaking to the middle part of the field there. Okay, so those would be kind of our 2 big 3-man rush concepts there. So either like a drop 9 double cut or some kind of 2-man concept with the spy.
Awesome. If you got time to stick around, we've got a few more here lined up. You good for that?
For sure.
Yeah. Last one or next one we've got is dealing with receivers adding in. So
okay.
when they're adding in, what's your thoughts on how you're doing that? They're adding more guys into the box.
All right, let me pull this up here. All right, so there's a few different things that we would try to do in add-in situations here. So the first thing is generally we talk about our defensive backs. If they're a low zone player here, if their receiver adds to the box, we give them a very specific alignment for where they're adding. So we call it a C5 technique. So whoever's in contain is going to stay in contain and play the D gap. They're trying to get to 5 yards depth and get their body into the C gap. And so when number 2 comes down here, our halfback is going to add. Whoever's in contain should stay outside to play the D gap. His gap responsibility now becomes C. Okay, and so he does a good job getting down to 5 yards. This is a good example of the second part of the technique. And so technically our end is supposed to be a B gap player here, but he messes up his assignment. Once that halfback gets in position into that C gap at 5 yards, now he's just treating it like a linebacker and he's reading windows. So he's essentially reading cloudy or clear gaps now for his run fit. So I get to the C gap. Do I have an open gap or is it a cloudy gap? Is there something in it? If it's open and the ball's pressing it, I can attack my gap right now. If there's somebody in my gap or it's cloudy, I'm going to continue to scrape at 5 yards until I do find an open window. And so he eventually finds the open window here down in the B gap late. I like the fact that he stayed at linebacker depth, and you can see him working flat across here at linebacker depth adding in. But I think the couple big things are giving him a specific aiming point first, which is the C gap at 5 yards. And then you're working on reading windows as you go across, whether it's cloudy or clear. And then the big thing is the ball threatening my window. So this is the same thing from our field half, right? Number 2 adds. This would be him saying bump, bump, bump to our linebacker. So that tells them they got to fall back a gap now because they're adding a gap backside. This is a good example how the fit should work. So edge guy's going to stay and contain. I'm going to get to the C gap of 5 yards. In this case, I've got an open window in front of me. So I can't keep scraping. I got to sit in that window. I can't scrape past an open window. Now when the ball's actually threatening it, now I can pull the trigger downhill. Okay, but if it's an open window, stay in the window until you know the ball's committed elsewhere. If it's a cloudy window, now you can continue to scrape to the next open one until you find the ball. Okay, and then this one, this would be a guy coming from third level down, but again, getting to the C gap of 5 yards. Okay, it's a cloudy window in front of me. There's no point pressing it downhill. Eventually he's going to fall back to the running back here, but I like the fact that he's not just running downhill into traffic. I'm going to sit in the C gap of 5 yards and then continue to scrape back until I do find an open window to the ball there. And then I'll show one more here. Okay, so this would be, again, this is our free safety. He's spinning down behind our Sam here. So he's adding off of number 3. So again, the Sam's going to fit outside. So he's trying to get down to 5 yards depth. And now he's reading that C or D gap window in this case, right? So open window in front of me. I got to shuffle and stay in the window until I know the ball's committed away. If for whatever reason this end jumped way out here, okay, now I'm going to scrape to the next open window until I can locate the ball. So that's one option, is just teaching the technique of how you're going to respond when they add a receiver to the box. This is another option, and this is more scheme related than technique. You can only do this with certain coverages, but you can potentially like have an automatic pressure built into it when receivers add into the box. And so the big thing you're looking at with that is, what are they doing when they add in receivers to the box? If they're always going back across, whether it's to kick out an end or to slip out to the flat, then a lot of times just bringing the overhang guy to that side can be really beneficial. If they're coming back out to the same side that they're going in, that may discourage you from doing it, or it makes it very specific what you're going to do coverage-wise behind it. But in this case, our Will would stay in coverage if he stays out wide. As soon as he adds to the box, now he's blitzing the B gap in behind it. And so, especially here where they're trying to run the Sally game off of it, you know, this guy's not necessarily in the box count initially, and then you're adding him to the box count right at the snap. And so it's difficult for the offensive line to expand their vision all the way outside to that overhang guy, and you get a free runner in that instance. So that's not a bad way to attack it, but it needs to be, you can only do that with certain things. This is another example, again, where number 2 weak adds. So now he's going to add to the box. The other nice thing in that case is it gets them off of their double teams, especially if you're adding front side, so they can't stay on the first level double teams as long as they could. So that's one way we've done it. You can't do that every single week, but especially if you're playing like double hold behind it and you're pretty confident he's going back across the box, then that's not a bad way to attack it either.
Fantastic. If we switch gears to double tight ends,
Okay.
what are some of your front adjustments and your coverage adjustments when you get the eligibles out of the box? You know, your 2x1, your 1x2, or your 3x0.
Okay. All right. So this is going to be a mix of like true double tight and some 3-back stuff here. So the couple of things we kind of talk about when we're dealing with 3-backs or double tight stuff, we usually want to get at least 5 guys immediately threatening the line of scrimmage, and in some instances 6, whether that's by creating a de facto 5-man front or by bringing some of our pressures, we're bringing, you know, 1 or 2 guys from outside of the box and putting them right at the line of scrimmage, right at the snap. The other big things, it's really important to understand why they're getting in double tight. And so, you know, the couple big ones that we see, are they trying to create a ton of surface to run like their inside and wide zone game? Because that's going to dictate one set of issues. Are they getting into double tight just hoping that you're going to bring more guys down into the box so that they can max pro and get one-on-one coverage on the outside? And so I think you really have to spend time on what are they trying to do when they get into double tight? Are they just trying to pound the ball, or are they just buying time until we'll give them one-on-one on the outside? And that's going to dictate a couple different responses in terms of how you attack it. The other big ones, I think the starting point with 2 tight ends is you got to set the edge in both the run and the pass game right now. And so in the run game, there's so much surface there, especially if you're playing like a really good wide zone team and they're going double tight end. That's really, really difficult. And so you want to set that fence post right now where, okay, we know we've secured the edge. Now we want all our inside guys staying square inside and not getting turned. But it has to start by setting the edge on both sides in the run game. So play side setting the edge, and then backside making sure that we're playing the bootleg off of it. And then in the pass game, a lot of teams, when they get into 2 tight ends, one of the reasons they like it is they're just expecting that you're going to keep the ends in 6 techniques. And so now if they keep those tight ends in protection, it's really difficult to pass rush for those contain rushers if you're only rushing 4 guys and he's got to rush from an inside alignment with a tight end outside of him. And so one of the things we like to do is make sure we're bringing pressure outside of those tight ends. And so if they are going to stay in to protect, well, we're going to try to get them one-on-one right now. We're not going to let them double or pin our contain guys and slow down our pass rush. So this is one of our answers. We're in like a sub package right now, but the first thing we're doing here is bring 2 backers down to the line. And we're really just getting into like a typical saw blitz for us, but we'll give these guys a bunch of different paths that they could use. And so, you know, these guys could be off the edge and contain like the typical saw blitz that you're going to see. You could bring them inside. This for us would be a pattern where these guys are upfield, they're keying the end man. The outside backer is keying the end man. If he steps to the end, he's going to wrap tight off of his hip. If he were to step down, then he's going to go flat down the line and chase. But you're trying to kind of play games with their edge guys about who's in contain and who's inside. And so the thing I like about this, our outside backer is showing outside of the end. He does a great job selling it upfield for a step, and then he goes flat down the line. We end up with 2 guys taking our end and then our outside backer in position to run right down the heels of the offensive line. So by game plan, we could say, okay, here's the like 2 or 3 patterns we like, run these. Or once you teach them to the guys, you can just say, call whatever pattern you want. And you can change it up over the course of the game. So you can bring those outside backers inside off the edge. You can run this delay pattern here. This is another look at it. The same kind of look for our Sam and our Will. All right, so he's showing down off the edge. He's keying the end man. End man's to him, so he's going to wrap tight to the inside gap. And again, we're able to turn him loose here. The ball ends up going outside, but again, he makes him belly a little bit, so he's disrupting the play there. But that's one way we'll attack it, is putting 6 guys immediately threatening the line of scrimmage and then playing those games on the outside about who's in contain and who the edge rusher is. The inside rusher. Sorry, let me put this one up here. Okay, so the next thing that we'll do here, and so some of these looks are going to be a little funky because they're giving us an unbalanced line here as well. Okay, but one of the things that we're going to do is add defensive backs to the snap right at the ball. So, you know, to the question earlier about adding in, one of the great things I got from Coach Knox, and I think it's a good way to attack it, you can spend a ton of time teaching your defensive backs to add into the box, and it's important and you still do it. And it does take a lot of work, but if you've got a good idea they're going to be adding receivers to the box, or if they're just giving you like 2 tight ends or 3 back personnel, just blitz those guys instead and let them add to the box with certainty as opposed to having to read it on the run. And so this one would be our Sam and our strong half off the edge here. And then we're spinning our free safety down in behind it. Okay, and so we're really creating like a 6-man front right at the snap. We've got our 4D linemen plus our Sam and our strong halfback attacking the line of scrimmage. And so it's really difficult for the offensive line. They can't stay on their double teams. You're getting them all back to one-on-one blocks right now. You're giving them something to think about because you're bringing guys from outside of the box. And again, you're playing a really simple 3 deep coverage that's sound against the run and behind it. And especially when you start getting like these wacky formations in motion, the nice thing is all they have to do is count. So he's got to play over the 1, the free safety spinning down to 2, the Mike's got to play 3. And so it's a very easy coverage to sort out for them. Like the free's down on 2, Mike's in position inside out to play 3, and we still get covered down. And we're in a good alignment if they do try to run the ball here. Okay, and then this would be same kind of deal here. So we're creating a 5-man front. We're doing this out of a 30 front here, right? So we've got 2 4 eyes here and a 0, and then we're bringing a backer off either edge here and spinning our halfback down. And so again, the part I like about this is we've got immediate contain on both edges. We're changing who's in contain and bringing somebody from outside of the tight end to set the edge right now. And the other thing I didn't talk about earlier, but I think it's important to change up which defensive backs you're adding to the box. So if they know the weak half is always going to be in the box versus 3-back or double tight, they can scheme for that. If they don't know if the weak half is coming down, if the free's coming down, it makes it a little bit more difficult for them to sort out their rules for how they're going to block their base run game. Okay, and then this would be another example of just creating a 5-man front at the snap here. Again, playing 3 deep coverage in behind it. But if you look at our front, right, we've got a 4 technique here with our Sam lined up in a 9 on the line of scrimmage, right? And it's essentially like an American underfront with the Sam linebacker walked up on the line of scrimmage in a 9 here. But again, we've got immediate contain to the field, even against that much surface. I'll show one more example here. Okay, and this would be a 50 front again with our Will walked up. So now we're playing 4 eyes again inside. Our weak halfback, we're actually playing man here. So he's manned up on the weak tight end, our Sam's on the strong tight end, and Mike's over the back. But again, we're typically going to have at least 5, if not 6 guys immediately attacking the line of scrimmage against double tight stuff. And we want to make sure we take care of the edges first and foremost here. I'll show this one as well. So here's one more good example of, again, getting 2nd and 3rd level guys involved in the blitz. So this is 21 double tight. This time we're bringing our weak corner and our weak half off the weak edge here. Sam spinning to the post and our free safeties replacing over the top weak. And so again, we've got a 9 technique end to the field setting the edge right now. We've got our corner and our half setting the edge to the boundary right now. And it's a difficult pickup for them to sort out. You can see our corner gets turned loose here and to get the tackle for the loss. So there's a couple different ways, I think, to attack it. The big thing is we don't want to just line up in the standard, 4 down with an overhang to both sides, because I think every offense has answers for that. You still may do it on occasion because there's merit to it in certain situations, but for the most part, I think you want to get them off double teams as quickly as you can. You got to have 5 or 6 guys attacking the line of scrimmage right now, whether that's substituting bigger bodies, whether that's bringing defensive backs to the party right now in the blitz game. And you got to be in coverages where guys can add in. So, if it's cover 3 or cover 1, you're in good shape there because they can add for the extra gaps. If you're going to do anything with that halfback as a high player, the linebackers kind of have to be 2 gap players now, and you have to teach that halfback how to add from depth and how to read run pass from depth as well, which is another bit of teaching. So those would kind of be my thoughts on 2 tight ends and 3 back stuff.
Yeah, it's fantastic. To be honest, I really like that combination or double read you had there with the end and the outside linebacker both reading the tackle. It was the first one that you shown. That's really good stuff. When you're doing something like that, is that like an early training camp rep kind of thing as part of your base thing, or is that more of a game plan specific? I know you said you'll cycle through things, but
yeah. So like with that, you kind of teach the core blitz patterns right from day one. Yeah. And so same as I'm saying with the blitzes earlier, like you would have one word that sends the Sam and the Will, and then you're teaching them the different patterns off of it. So, like crash means one thing and the end's going inside and the backer's off the edge. There's another word where the backer's showing off the edge and then looping inside tight off the hip at the end. There's another word for the backer blitzing inside. And so once you teach them, there's like 5 combinations, then you can just go through and game plan, okay, this week, these are the 2 that we really like because here's the runs and the protection that we're getting. And then you're going to spend your time repping those out. But it's good to teach them some of the communication early. We won't put it all in, but I think it's more important that you're teaching them how the communication works from the standpoint of, you know, this word means the blitz and this word means the pattern changes to this.
That's awesome there, Coach Brady. That does it for our questions that we have. So coaches, we can kind of open it up to you guys. If there's people online that have anything, go ahead and jump in. You can unmute yourself or in the chat. I know we did have something there left with the D line, Coach. I don't know if you want to spend some time going through that or we can save that for another session.
Whatever everybody wants.
But I'd like to open it up to see if there are any questions, maybe clarifications on anything that we've gone over from the coaches that are here with us. Okay, and then before, I guess, just quickly, can you talk about marrying your front with your coverage? So, and what I mean by that is how much do you feel your D line needs to understand the coverage that's going on behind them, and then vice versa, how much the coverage guys need to know what your front is doing up?
Yeah, so I think for certain things it's very important. Things like +1 is the easiest one to talk about because like the front directly affects how you're going to play coverage in that instance, because the front dictates they can only throw certain types of passes. So it gives the defensive backs a really good indication of what they actually have to defend. The defensive line, the couple things we'll talk to them about, like if we're bringing pressure, they have to understand where the pressure is coming from because it's going to affect how they pass rush. So if we're bringing like an overload pressure from the field, if I get stopped on my initial rush, I can't rush back to the field. I've got to keep working away from the pressure to the boundary. If we're bringing inside pressure, you know, let's say I'm an end playing contain. Well, where's the quarterback likely to escape against inside pressure? He's probably going to look to escape outside. If we're bringing overload pressure from the field, he's probably going to look to escape to the boundary. So those things do matter because it affects where you're going to counter in your pass rush and how you're going to pass rush if you're away from the blitz. You know, in terms of like some coverages, it doesn't necessarily affect it, but especially in the pressure game, I think it's super relevant for sure. Defensive backs, it matters for sure. Like you have to understand how many guys are rushing. I may have to cover for a long time here. The ball's got to come out right now. Those things are really, really relevant. The other big one is like teaching guys what's the worst thing we could see here and, you know, what the danger signs are. So again, if it's like +1, guys have to be on high alert for anybody bombering into the box. And so like the worst thing we could see in +1 is they're going to add like 1 or 2 more receivers to the box right at the snap of the ball. And now all of a sudden, like the only covering quick game to fade doesn't apply anymore. Now they potentially can pick up the pressure. The add-ins have no chance to get there because they're at 7 to 8 yards deep. And so now my technique may need to change right at the snap. I got to identify they just bombered. And then what are they likely to do off of that? Well, they're probably going to throw the ball downfield now because there's a reason to bring those guys in. So it matters for sure. For the front, again, I think it's more relevant where the pressure is coming from and then how that's going to affect my rush and where the quarterback is likely looking to escape based on where the blitz is hitting along the front. Those would be kind of my initial thoughts on that.
Hey, that's fantastic. I think that's going to do it for tonight, Coach. Really appreciate you jumping on. It was good to reconnect with you again, part of the Get Better Together that we're talking about over here. And if the season goes as we all hope we do, wish you best of luck this year. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot, Coach. Thanks, guys.